I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is going to be the first in several videos, I think, about romance, the perceptions, the prejudice about it, the belittling of it, and other genres. And just, I have a lot of thoughts, and I think that giving myself permission to do this in several different videos is part of how I'm going to make today happen. So this is just a quick introduction to why do people think that romance is dumb? Why is it always the punchline of the joke? Why is it something that is cool to make fun of, cool to diminish the skills of and the enjoyment of, and to act like it's just trash, it's just a palate cleanser, it's not that good, it is not as worthy as other literature, is not as worthy as other genres. I do have an entire genre video coming where I'm going to talk about how I think sometimes what genre that you read ranks you in the hierarchy of readers. I don't know if that will be completely its own video or if it will be combined with the rest of the things that put you in the hierarchy of readers, but those are coming, so I'm not going to talk about that today. But suffice it to say that romance is certainly not the only genre that gets made fun of or gets unfair comments from people who don't actually read it. The discourse about this, often on Twitter, will always have an underlying theme and tone about how romance, especially romance with explicit sex, because that is worse, that is cheaper, that is sluttier, that is even more intolerable and useless and worthless and silly than romance without explicit sex scenes. But how it's just the punchline of the joke. It is so easy to get people to agree with you when you're punching down at romance, when you are acting like it is cringy and embarrassing and dumb. People make fun of the titles of romance books. They make fun of the covers of romance books. They make fun of the synopsis. They make fun of snippets of scenes that are brought out of context, even when the person who brought it out is talking about how much they love the scene and how this is, one of their favorite parts. That can still be taken and made to go viral because people are acting like it is pointless drivel. You have people making fun of the character art, the intelligence of romance readers, the intelligence of romance authors, and how anyone can write a romance and they only write that because they can't write anything of more depth or significance or importance or, again, intelligence. That's a big theme. The people who read and write romance do so because they are too dumb to understand other books, which of course is very ableist. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Being dumb or being intelligent are not signifiers of your worth as a person, and is incredibly ableist of society as a whole and us as individuals to act like we are better than someone because we perceive ourselves to be smarter than they are. People act like romance is nothing more than fluff or filler or trash when the ease of reading something, one, does not equal to the ease of writing something. A sentence, a paragraph, a chapter, a book that reads smoothly was not written without skill. If you have ever read the work of a very unskilled person, if you have ever read any of my texts, it is so difficult for me to get sentences to flow together because I have no skills, I have no expertise in that area. I have never been, will never want to be a writer. That is not my destiny, and it is certainly not my skill set. But an unskilled book is clunky. You're constantly tripping over the writing. You're tripping over the sentences and the dialogue and the way that it is inserted into the story. The change in scenes is noticeable and abrupt. You're taken out of the story constantly because of the lack of good writing. A book that is easy reading, that flows and is smooth and is just easy to consume, you can literally inhale it in one sitting, that was done with skill. That was done with a gift and was a triumph from the author. Even if it's only a 30-page smutty novella, that is not something that anyone can do. That is not something that anyone who is a skilled writer can do. It is its own skill set and should be viewed as that. It is worthy of something. It serves a purpose. I've said many times, if it is trying to be chocolate cake, why are you acting like it's terrible macaroni and cheese? If it is a 30-page romance novella and it is an excellent romance novella, then the author did exactly what they were trying to do. And the assumption or the backhanded compliment that yes, that was good, but it's just a romance novella and anyone could do that is not true. It's not accurate, and it's annoying. So annoying. Again, people act like romance readers are only reading romance because that is the height of their intellectual ability and the most difficult prose and text that they are able to comprehend, when that is obviously ridiculous. People read romance because they enjoy it. You can have difficult to read romance, easy. You can have ones with a lot of trauma. You can have ones that are very feel good. You have romances with depth. You have romances from every culture. You have romances with every experience that we as humans go through. You have such a variety of romance that if you enjoy romance, there's romance for everyone. Obviously, not everyone likes romance. Some of that is misogyny. Some of that is the belittling of something that is viewed as feminine. But some of that is just personal preference. You don't enjoy reading romance. Some of that is being on the ace or demi spectrum of sexuality or romance, where you don't like that for yourself, that's not for you, and you also don't like reading it. You can like reading it and be ace. You can like sex and be ace. There's a broad spectrum of sexuality and that is true of any little section that you want to take. So by no means am I saying that ace readers and demisexual readers don't like romance, or that aromantic readers don't like romance, because there are people within that spectrum who enjoy romance and who absolutely don't want to read it at all. All of that exists. People are not just one thing. So you cannot like to read romance because of your own identity. You can also not like to read romance because you simply don't enjoy it for any reason, whether that is the genre of romance or a subplot inside of another genre, particularly fantasy. It is okay to not like romance. That does not make you prejudiced. That does not make you misogynistic. There are plenty of very valid reasons to not personally enjoy reading romance. Where we do fall into the misogyny and the traps is when we belittle people who enjoy something that we don't enjoy, particularly belittling romance when you have very little experience reading it yourself. Maybe you've never read it yourself. Maybe you've read a little bit and have decided that the 3 books that you read are indicative of the entire genre. There's a huge difference between traditionally published romance and indie romance. I think that self-published and indie romances are the best of the best. Obviously, that is not true across the board. You have bad books and good books in any section of books that you bring to the table, but indie romances are able to do things that traditionally published romances are not, because they're put in a box, and that box is very formulaic and is always the same and is very, very white and straight and from a place of privilege, because that is the publishing industry. Self-published books, indie publishing, does not mean that that book is not as good as a book that was traditionally published. In many cases, I would argue that they are better, that they have better representation, and that they have more interesting storylines. I also really think that it's weird and annoying to act like Kindle Unlimited is synonymous with bad quality. Kindle Unlimited is a wonderful tool that is given to us by Amazon, and of course Amazon misuses it and benefits from it the most, and is the one that profits off of it the most. However, it is a way for indie authors to get their books into the hands of new readers, and for readers like myself to be able to take a chance on authors that we are not already familiar with, because funds limit the amount of books that I can buy. I'm not going to buy a book that I am not even sure if I'm going to like. I'm just not. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm simply not going to read it. So Kindle Unlimited allows me access to authors legally in a way that I would never access them without it. So to act like Kindle Unlimited just means poor quality is extremely frustrating to me, because it's an accessibility tool. Yes, it is misused by Amazon. Absolutely, the authors should be paid more. Absolutely, the system should be so much better when it comes to authors having their grievances addressed and getting paid and all of that. Amazon is not a good company. I'm not going to sit here and say that they are. But again, Kindle Unlimited is an accessibility platform, basically. And to act like that means that it is trash is incredibly frustrating to me, personally. And I'm sure to many authors. Many creators that I enjoy watching on BookTube have a lot of disclaimers. anytime that they pick up a romance book, or even when they say that romance isn't for them. They say belittling things, and that doesn't mean that I dislike them. That doesn't mean that I attack them. Some of them are my favorite creators. I enjoy watching them, but it's interesting to see the opinion of people who don't read a lot of romance and the things that they think are the obvious disclaimers to say when picking up a romance. I think that for a lot of people with Ali Hazelwood and Emily Henry and maybe even Colleen Hoover, is that these romance books are good, they're not like the others. I saw recently a video that was talking about romances that are actually worth your time, as if all the other romances are not worth your time because they're not good. I often see people talking about how romance books are not nearly as good as other genre books with a romance subplot. And I find that to be frustrating too, because it's okay for you to like fantasy with a romance subplot and not be interested in picking up a romance genre book. But to act like all of romance genre is, again, written by authors who are doing their expertise thing more poorly than an author who has simply put it as a small part of their book, simply because your preference is that the entire book is not focused on romance, is so dismissive of the genre and acts like your personal preference is correct and more important than the enjoyment of readers who read something that you don't even read. When Smut by Karina Holly went viral, it was full of people belittling romance and talking down to it. When the girl with the Six of Crows review that said there were too many words on the page went viral, I saw a post that quote tweeted and said, "Babe, it's okay to admit you've only ever read romances and don't have the capacity to take in fantasy books." Belittling romance, even when romance is not the topic of conversation, is so common. Is difficult to be on bookish social media, especially as a romance reader, I'm sure, because you tend to see other romance readers share when people say these things. But to be on bookish social media and in this bookish online space is to see romance constantly the punchline of the joke. And I think that romance readers are very frustrated by that. I think that romance authors are very frustrated by that. And when we do push back, we tend to be told that we're being emotional or overreacting. I do want to specifically say that romance is not by women for women, it is not literature, it is not nothing but smut, it is not porn, it is not erotica. Erotica is its own separate genre. At some point I would like to talk about dark romance and the infantilizing of the authors and readers. There's a lot to be said because there are so many attacks against romance daily. But romance is not just for women. We have so many men, so many non-binary people in the romance space that is very dismissive and exclusionary and gatekeeping to say that it is just for the girlies or just for women. Obviously, it should be a safe space for women, but it is not only ours. Romance should belong to everybody. I also just want to point out that sometimes I do see particularly white women romance readers acting like being a romance reader is a marginalized identity, and because of that marginalized identity, it excuses anyone that they want to attack for disliking romance. It excuses some of the language that they use, and it excuses some of the nastiness that they are willing to say about people in defense of romance. And I find that to be extremely problematic. I think that there are huge parts of the romance community that are uplifting white supremacy and Trumpism and are very slut-shamey towards people in the community. They're slut-shamey towards characters in their books. There's just, a lot. And you also have people who are BIPOC and queer and progressive. You have people on all sides of the spectrums because, again, romance can be for anyone who wants to be in it. So while I'm here defending romance, and I'm going to probably have several videos talking about the discussions I see online, I do just want to point out that it's not a marginalized identity. It is not equal to being Black or being queer or having microaggressions done against you because of your identity. Romance reader is not an identity, so it cannot play into identity politics. But I do think that being a romance reader and a romance author is often looked down upon, and it's always nice when we can have our own safe space within the community, and I hope that we continue to make that space safe for others as well. Let me know what you would like to hear about romance or the romance community or genres, and I'm sure this will not be my only video on the topic. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.